Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. And just a few weeks ago, Trump was being urged to sue Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over her reaction to his handling of the Epstein files. Oh, Fox News and others were baying for blood. Sue her into oblivion. Perhaps they thought AOC really had defamed the president, or perhaps they just thought that with his moves towards authoritarianism, he could win a court case without even needing to be right. Or maybe it would have just been really good for clicks. But it seems they've miscalculated. According to reports, Trump's lawyers were instructed to sue her, but then came up with a few reasons why Trump absolutely should not. And he seems to have chickened out again. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So a few weeks ago, President Babyhands was deciding that the time had arrived to break it to his supporters that the Epstein files wouldn't be released after all. Either he no longer felt he needed to keep stringing the process along, or he was simply bored of the whole pretense. So the Department of Justice announced that no further files would be released. Trump described the entire affair as boring, and anyone who still demanded the release of the files was a weakling and falling for a left-wing ploy to destabilise his magnificent MAGA project. Trump's political opponents sensed an opening. The Epstein files is a crucial part of the glue binding MAGA together. It's become symbolic of the deep state cover-up. Because there is actually a cover-up here. You can't send people that far down a rabbit hole only to tell them nothing to see here, go home. One such opponent, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC, very influential Democratic politician from Trump's native New York. She decided to ratchet the temperature up on social media. She posted, "Wow, who would have thought that electing a rapist would have complicated the release of the Epstein files?" Well, the MAGA media took the bait and immediately demanded Trump sue her for defamation. They sensed the chance to get rid of a major thorn in their side. Ocasio-Cortez has a hugely popular following, a real counter to the talking points which much of that side of the media in the United States wants their audiences to accept as fact. The opportunity to destroy her, too much to pass up. And although we can't be certain, reports had suggested that it angered Trump enough to instruct his lawyers to take action. Absolutely brilliant for the likes of Fox News. They'd get an incredibly newsworthy showdown between the Republican president and the Democratic upstart, which would end in her humiliation in court, as they would see it. Only this is not how it appears to have panned out. Trump has chickened out again. But why? Well now, let's build up a bit, because this is a beauty. So Trump is certainly in the mood for suing people, right? Not long ago, he filed a defamation lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal and its owner, of course, Rupert Murdoch. The suit came after the paper ran a story about a birthday letter allegedly sent from Trump to Jeffrey Epstein. That legal action immediately sparked a bit of a theory. What if the lawsuit itself becomes the real tool used to expose new details about Trump and Epstein? The idea was that the Journal's lawyers could use the discovery process to demand every single communication record and document Trump has related to Epstein. Very tantalising thought that Trump's own legal attack could open a Pandora's box that he desperately wants to keep shut. Now, as of the current situation, both sides have agreed to pause the discovery process until a judge rules on a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. So for now, the floodgate in this specific case remains closed. But that doesn't end the story, though. It just refines it. The situation highlights a basic truth of high-stakes lawsuits. Any legal action, especially one about defamation, carries the massive risk of forced transparency. So while this suit is on hold, it's a reminder of the legal machinery that's just sitting there waiting. And the key isn't this one lawsuit. It's the immense power the legal system has when someone finally turns it on. So how does this relate to the calls to sue AOC? Well, and obviously there's a healthy dose of speculation here, but the suggestion is that the same logic applies here. That egged on by the likes of Fox News, Trump may have found the idea of suing her appealing, but his lawyers may have pointed out to him, Mr. President, Ocasio-Cortez is unlikely to back down easily. She's probably going to have quite a bit of money behind her. And if it goes to court, her lawyers may be able to wangle access to relevant sections of the Epstein files, and that at the very least, Trump would have to take the stand and be cross-examined about his relationship with Epstein on oath. At which point, a lot of people think Trump probably decided the idea was a bit too hazardous for him. The whole issue of the Epstein files is a bit of a double-edged sword for Trump. On the one hand, absolutely marvellous distraction from some of the more meaningful things happening in the United States. On the other, it sets him on a collision course with a significant chunk of his base. And Trump's problems with this issue don't begin and end with media revelations or courtroom battles. The most relentless push to uncover this has come from the US Senate, Senator Ron Wyden. For years, he's been deep in a sort of follow the money investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's finances, long before Trump started his second term. What he found points to a financial empire, quite frankly, bigger and more complex than anyone really suspected. His investigations focused on the US Treasury Department, which he says is sitting on a huge, mostly secret file on Epstein. According to the senator, the files aren't just a few bank statements, but a gold mine of data, is how he describes it, detailing over $1.5 billion in transactions. He described finding nearly 5,000 wire transfers from just one of Epstein's bank accounts, totaling over $1 billion. And Wyden has said that his team was allowed to view some of these Treasury documents, and they reportedly found a very complicated web of transactions, including payments to women and girls from countries like Russia, Belarus, Turkey, so on. The public story of Trump and Epstein, a couple of chapters here. There's the one very well documented, that period of them being very close friends, neighbours, socialising in the 90s, early 2000s, photographed together at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Trump flew on Epstein's private jet on multiple occasions. In a 2002 magazine profile, Trump called Epstein a terrific guy, said he was a lot of fun to be with. Then you've got the second chapter, and that's the one that people want to know about, the falling out. See, for years, Trump has said he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago sometime in the mid-2000s after an incident involving a club member's daughter. More recently, he says it's because Epstein was stealing young women, right, who worked at his spa. Now, a close relationship with Epstein does not mean Trump was involved in his criminal activities, or even necessarily aware of them, of course. Epstein was a socialite as well as a sex trafficker. But Trump is only raising suspicions by trying to shut down any discussion of their friendship. The denial of a birthday letter to his good friend, why try to deny it? The Wall Street Journal will 100% have checked their sources, they're not amateurs. If the case isn't immediately thrown out, it could lead to the court ordering the release of hitherto unpublished documents, which is exactly what a lot of people want to happen and exactly what Trump is trying to avoid happening. If you ask me, do I think Trump is linked with Epstein's criminal activities? I honestly have no idea. Trump is known to be a bit thick. It's entirely possible he had no idea, I suppose. But his over-the-top attempts to stop people even talking about their friendship raises red flags. Methinks the orange one doth protest too much. And then, of course, there's his widely documented comments on how women should be treated as well. It's all very suspicious. The nature of Trump and Epstein's financial relationship, that could be key, if there was one, remains a complete mystery. This is where the story could get really murky and where unverified claims rush in to fill the void. But, for example, there are tapes recorded by Michael Wolff saying that Epstein claimed he was one of Trump's closest friends, amongst other things, and Trump's team blasted the claims as baseless, but they stick around in the public debate. Reason being, because the actual record that could prove or disprove it is still sealed. Legal discovery is a very good way to force out the evidence that could either prove or debunk the claims like these, moving them from speculation to fact. Trump is playing with fire in firing off defamation suits, which run the risk of a court ordering the unsealing of some of these documents. So how exactly could a lawsuit drag these secrets into the light? Well, the answer is this legal process called discovery. When a civil lawsuit gets going, discovery is the phase where both sides are legally forced to hand over relevant information to each other. And this is court ordered. It's a demand, not a request. Subpoenas for private emails, text messages, calendars, financial records held by banks and accountants. Now, we've already seen how powerful discovery can be in the Epstein saga through the massive lawsuits that were filed against banks like Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan Chase. Those lawsuits brought by victims forced the banks to turn over years of Epstein's financial records. They revealed how the banks allegedly ignored red flags and made his operations possible, giving us the most detailed look at the money that fueled his crimes. Now imagine the same legal power aimed at Trump. Trump has successfully worked to avoid having his financial records disclosed in public for years. If a lawsuit were moved into discovery, lawyers could argue that any financial relationship with Epstein is relevant to the case. They could subpoena bank records, communications with financial advisors, any document that shows money or assets changing hands. That process can bypass sealed records and private agreements. It's a legal device designed to get to the truth, and if it's turned on in the right way, could be an unstoppable force that finally cracks open the financial black box of the Epstein network. And for some, this is what they've been trying to do for years. The Epstein scandal is huge in itself. The MAGA conspiracy theorists, okay, they may be taking some of this to extremes in their beliefs, but there are very genuine cover-ups here. There's very genuine secrets about the role of public figures in his criminal operation. The American public at least have a right to see a proper investigation. But Trump's involvement at a time when he's literally destroying the United States and people are trying to work out how to stop him invites greater motivation to poke at what the Orange One has made clear is a serious weakness for him. It's not clear to me how exposing his own vulnerability by threatening defamation instead of just shouting fake news like he usually does is going to help him. A master strategist he is not. Pressure from Congress runs parallel to the legal efforts. Lawmakers from both parties, hearing from their constituents, have refused to let the issue fade away. Democrats initiated the subpoena for the Department of Justice files, and some Republicans have joined them. Rare moment of bipartisan agreement these days. The current Justice Department is also under a microscope for its handling of Epstein-related documents. For example, they recently argued in court to unseal grand jury transcripts from the Epstein and Maxwell cases, pointing to the significant public interest. But that's a red herring. But he's got this constant heat from Congress, victims advocates and the public making it harder and harder to keep these secrets. It just puts a spotlight on every lawsuit and every legal filing, raising the stakes and making it more difficult for powerful people to just brush off calls for accountability. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.